The one, the only Shirley Jackson.
She writes stories with cannibalism in them.
She's gone sick in the head.
You terrify me. How do you do that?
They're just stories.
Shirley has these bouts, and our last housekeeper just quit.
I have an idea. It's a novel about that missing girl.
Sounds trashy. You know how insulted I am by mediocrity.
Shirley? Don't touch my writing. Don't touch anything! Do you know what it's like to have a secret? You are hiding something.
Just inquiring, darling. You're not halfway through a novel you haven't shown me.
She's working quite hard. Every hour, every day.
You're getting on well with the wifey. You don't want my work to suffer too, do you?
No, I'm not one for dramatics. This is between us.
See how she relies on you, the way she talks to you, your secret looks.
She's my friend.
Women like Shirley don't have friends.
What becomes of your dear heroine?
This book, it hurts more than the others.
You don't know your subject!
Do not tell me I do not know this girl. There are dozens and dozens of lonely girls who cannot make the world see them. The world is too cruel to girls.
Hello and welcome to Cousin Home Living Room, a season of live stream Q&As brought to you by Cousin Home Cinema. I'm Beth Webb, contributing editor for Empire magazine. I'm joined today by one of the most exciting actors working today. The characters that she embodies often are the paragon of female resilience and talent. Like Shirley Jackson, the pioneering author and the person who filmmaker Josephine Decker has chosen for her latest film. I'm of course talking of Elisabeth Moss. Elisabeth, hi, and thank you so much for joining us today for this very special evening.
Hi, Beth. Thank you for having me. And hello, everyone out there who is listening from home.
Yes, hello, everyone. We are live streaming this on YouTube and on Facebook. But if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, we will be asking throughout this interview. So do send as soon as you'd like. And please use the hashtag Shirley. This goes for Twitter as well. If you'd like to submit a question on Twitter, please include hashtag Shirley. And if you want to tell us where you are in the world, that would be really nice as well. So Elisabeth, if I could start by asking where your relationship with Shirley Jackson's work began and what speaks to you about her work.
Yeah, I wasn't hugely familiar with her work when I got the script. I'd read The Lottery and knew of Shirley Jackson, knew of Haunting of Hill House, some of the more the things that have been adapted into films and such. But I wasn't as familiar with her work as I should have been, because when I started to really read everything as part of the research for the film, I was obviously, she's an incredible writer, but I also was like, this is very much in the tone of the kinds of film and television I like to do. So I couldn't believe I hadn't read more. I think for me, she's often spoken of as a horror writer, which she is very good at. She writes very scary stuff, but for me, she's also incredibly funny. It might be a dry sort of humor, but she's very witty and has incredible observations about character and humanity and women and men. And I found her to be incredibly intelligent, and her observations about life and people to be really incredibly impressive.
Fabulous. And it was a unified goal for yourself and Josephine Decker and your co-cast to portray Shirley, as a modern woman, why was that important to you?
Well, because she was a modern woman. I mean, she was writing her whole life. Of course, she was the breadwinner of her family. Stanley was, also a critic and a writer and a professor, and held his own. But she was the sort of main breadwinner, and then she achieved sort of notoriety and fame with the lottery and with successive works. And she was also a homemaker. And what we haven't done in our film, because we've done an adaptation of a book by Susan Scarf Merrill called Shirley. So it's the AntiBiopic. It's highly inaccurate and highly fictionalized. And one of the main things is that her children aren't in the film. She had 4 children. She was, by all accounts, a wonderful mother, a great cook, and was a lot of fun as a mom and very funny. And so she was the modern woman. She was one of those women who was doing it all far before people were talking about doing it all.
And you researched her, you read her work, you listened to audio recordings of her reading her work, and you also read some letters that she shared with Stanley, with your co-star Michael Stuhlbarg. What did you take away from reading those letters with him? What were your main takeaways on their relationship?
They were so helpful, those letters. We were so lucky to be able to read them. And the main takeaway, I think, for the both of us, for both Michael and I, was about their relationship and how modern it was, how funny they were, the little nicknames that they had for each other, the flirtation between them, the kind of little dirty jokes, they were really, you could see, yourself in them. It was a very kind of modern relationship. I think when we think about people in the past or period films, we think about films that we've seen. We don't necessarily think about the actual people, and they weren't that different from us. And so that was, I think, very illuminating for us to just witness their intelligence and their senses of humor.
I would love to know if there was a nickname that you remembered that they shared between them.
I don't remember. Michael probably would. But no, I don't.
It's fun to imagine. It's fun to imagine what they might have called each other at that time.
Very cute, silly things that are just, embarrassing if anyone else hears them.
So we have our first question from Janie from the Netherlands. Hello, Janie. How was it to meet Shirley Jackson's son and to talk about the film with him?
Oh, it's so interesting and crazy. So I met her son, Lawrence, and I was at a party at Sundance, and it was loud and hot, and like how those parties can be. If we all remember when that used to happen way long ago. And someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and there was a nice looking gentleman there, and he said, but who was clearly a little older than I, and he said, "Hi, hey, Mom." And I sort of thought I had misheard, or perhaps that he was a crazy person. And I said, so sorry, excuse me. Hi, Mom. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't understand. Because he didn't look crazy. He looked like a nice man. And he said, I'm Lawrence. I'm Shirley and Stanley's, one of Shirley and Stanley's children. And I was like, oh my God. And then immediately I was like, where's Michael? And brought Michael over, and we talked to him. And he's just lovely. Then we got the opportunity to do another interview together, I think, with the New Yorker, and have some email exchanges. And he was just so generous and kind, especially about the fact that we cut him and his siblings out of the movie and out of her story. And I can't imagine what it's like to see a very kind of one-sided, highly fictionalized version of your mother, who you love. And so he's the one who told me what a great homemaker she was, and how funny she was, and how silly and what a wonderful mother she was. And so it was great to hear that even after the fact. And anyway, so he's a lovely man, and I am very excited about the work that he's doing. He's really working to preserve her work and to continue to bring it to a larger audience, which is wonderful.
Oh, what a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about Josephine Decker, who's just such a muscular filmmaker already in the work that she's done. What excited you about her as a filmmaker?
I love the word muscular. I love that. I love that to describe anyone, but especially her. That's really cool. I have to steal that. Yeah, so she and I are so different. And what's often well, you hope happens in that case is that somebody brings you something new, challenges you, and brings something out of you that is something you're not used to. And I think that's what happened with her and I. She was very liberating, and she was very not prescriptive, and allowed all the actors to try different things. There was never a do it this way or do it that way, and this is the way that it's supposed to be, and there's no other way. She was really created a very free space. We became great friends, which is, not always the case. But I have so much respect for her and admiration of her. This is a very difficult film to shoot, and a difficult film to cut. And I think she did a wonderful job.
Fantastic. I'd love to know some more about the process of becoming Shirley, because she has such a presence. It's not always a pleasant one, but she has such a myriad of emotions that she's very mercurial. And I wanted to know how you began the process of stepping into somebody like Shirley Jackson.
Yeah, there was something about her that I loved and I understood. And I really like when that happens with a character, that there's something about them that's intangible that you can't even really put your finger on, but there's something about them that you understand, you get. And I did feel that with our version of Shirley. The script was fantastic. Sarah Gubbins wrote an incredible adaptation of the book. And that was the roadmap. I very much followed that roadmap. A lot of the things that I did were in the script. She really wrote a very fully realized, muscular, as you said, character. I'm already saying it. I mean, God, if there's anyone who's muscular, it's definitely Shirley. So I started with that. That was the roadmap, was that script. And you're very lucky when you have such a detailed map like that. And then I had this luxury of being able to read all of her work, which was incredibly informative, really understand her sense of humor and her viewpoints on life, and her viewpoints on people. And then there's an incredible biography that came out by Ruth Franklin, I believe. I hope I'm getting that right. That was really, really helpful. There were her letters, of course, the letters between her and Stanley. There was a recording of the lottery that she had done that was helpful for the voice and the dialect. I had an incredible dialect coach named Coley, who just is a genius. And I got to work with her on the dialect there. And then the physical part of it was, there was, a sort of padding situation to work out to make me kind of, to fill me out a little bit more, to look a little bit more like her. The wig, the makeup, to kind of bring out all the things we usually try to hide. And lean into them. And that was really fun for me. And so all those elements coming together helped, I think, to form my idea of who she was, but really just to follow who Sarah wrote.
Wonderful. That's amazing. We have another question for you. Diana via YouTube. I feel you are a very instinctive actor, but it seems like the way each of your characters move is very thought through. To what extent do you make those decisions by planning or by instinct? Great question, Diana. Thank you.
Really great question. Thank you, Diana. I think the movement, I believe is the word, right? The move, that is very instinctive, almost 100%, honestly. I was doing an interview with somebody who described the character as stout, and I was like, that's exactly right. She's stout. She's like, she's like a cat she reminds me of my cat Lucy, actually. She's like a cat who sort of just sits and plants herself. There's a strength and a stoutness to her physicality. One of the things I said early on was that I felt like she was very still. I felt like, but not in a dormant way, in a coiled way. I felt like she just planted herself in a chair or in a corner, and she just has absolutely no intention of moving until she wants to move. And then because of the physical kind of side of things, with having a little bit more fullness to my body, that sort of changed the way that I sat and changed the way that I walked a little bit. But it was really, just to answer the question, incredibly instinctive. There was no planning whatsoever. It just kind of happened. I was like, oh, I'm going with this.
That's superb. I was wondering if your relationship with Shirley Jackson has changed since you began reading her work and began taking on the project. Obviously, I mean, our release schedule is massively behind the US's, but you've sat with this film for a long time. We're speaking about it now. How has your relationship with her changed, if at all?
It's interesting because I feel very proud and sort of honored to have any connection with her whatsoever. I have so much respect for her work and also for what she was accomplishing as a woman at that time, that to have any conversations that happen where I get to be involved in a Shirley Jackson conversation, for me, I just feel really proud. As far as the relationship, I mean, I just keep feeling, I have this nagging feeling that there's just more to be done there. I think there are so many works that have not been adapted for film or television. I think there's so much material there, and I love the tone of her material. So I keep having this nagging thing of, God, what else could we do? What else could we do?
Oh, fantastic. I hope that's not the end of your relationship with her on screen 100%.
I hope not too.
Yeah.
I hope not too.
We have a question from Rachel. Were there any elements of Shirley's writing that you were particularly keen to bring to the film?
Yeah, her sense of humor. I find her writing has a lot of similarities to Margaret Atwood's. And one of the things that I love the most about Margaret's writing is the sense of humor, this dry wit, this capability of using your intelligence to analyze a situation, but do it in a way that makes you hopefully smile a little bit. There's that twinkle in Margaret Atwood's eye, and I think the same twinkle exists in Shirley's. So I feel like even in the moments when she's being aggressive or acerbic or being mean, I tried to make sure that there was a twinkle, there was a little bit of something that she knows that she is far smarter than the person that she is skewering.
That's incredible. And in terms of genre, I mean, we describe her loosely as a horror writer because she, presented these works that contributed and are renowned for being beautiful, poignant pieces of horror. But what do you think that lends to her experience as a professional woman at that time? And how did that feel to play that on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are really, I might not be educated in it enough, but I do not think there were a lot of female horror writers at that time. And her popularity and fame, certainly, I don't think on that level. And I do think that her being a woman obviously contributed to perhaps being slightly less known than some of her male counterparts, which, oldest story in the book. It's true for many a profession. But I do think that, I love the horror genre. And I do think that one of the reasons that it is so interesting, and same with sci-fi, is that there is a way to analyze life allegorically and metaphorically that allows you to take a step back from it. It allows you to experience, I think it was Jordan Peele that I heard speaking about this, and I'll paraphrase, but, experience fear, but kind of without actually having to run from the bad guy, but you get to experience it and overcome it and get that thrill or get the feeling of success of overcoming that challenge, but without actually having to be chased by an axe murderer. So, I think there's the themes that you can explore in horror, I think, are really, really fascinating. And I love that she did that. So, I think as well, there are so many lessons to be learned in her novels. There's a lot of family situations can be horrific. Certainly a lot of political situations can be horrific. And I do think that she explored those in a really interesting way.
It's certainly, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of women today picking up her work for the first time, and I don't think it's a coincidence. So it's wonderful that we get this, albeit, you know, fictionalized look into a period of her life. It's really cathartic. We've spoken about Stanley a lot, but obviously, you know, there's another key relationship in the film, which is with Rose. When you read the screenplay for the first time, what were your main perceptions of Shirley and Rose, and what Rose represents to her and her story?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's unusual in the sense that the film is called Shirley. So you kind of go into it thinking this is a Shirley biopic. This is from her point of view, and it's not at all. The film starts with Rose and Logan's character in the film. And the first time you see Shirley, you see her from Rose's point of view, and then it kind of starts to transition into Shirley's point of view as Rose gets to know her better. But it really could very easily be called Shirley and Rose, the film. You know, it's very much about the two of them and the 5 different relationships that they go through. And I think it would have been impossible to explore this character without having somebody who you could see her through, because Shirley's not going to let you in. You know, she's not going to just open up and this is who I am and this is the kind of person I am and this is what I'm doing. You know, she doesn't do that. So you do need that character who you can observe her from. The opportunity as well to see different sides of Shirley, I think, is also what you needed Rose for, to see the mothering side of her, to see the sexual side of her, to see the aggressor. You know, it really allowed me to bring different things out of Shirley.
Wonderful. And I have to talk about this very insular cast that you worked with in a very insular environment. And you still managed to turn in this like deliciously funny film out of the most bleak circumstances. Like nobody in that film is especially happy. Could I ask a little bit about rehearsal space between you, and then as well just filming the film together in a small space with, you know, this not duty but a real sense that you had to try and summon moments of joy and tenderness and humor out of this situation?
Yeah, well, every small film and every independent film, as this was there's a summer camp vibe, you know, which is really fun, and I love it. And this definitely had that, in the sense of we filmed mostly, you know, primarily in that house. It was actually summer. It was August in upstate New York, which is, by the way, absolutely miserable and very, very hot. And do not think that there was air conditioning in this old house. There was not. So it was kind of lovely. We were all always staying pretty much at the same place or on the same street. It was pre-COVID, so, you know, you go to dinner, or you could hang out with, you know, take a walk with somebody. And there was a real familial atmosphere. We didn't have a lot of rehearsal, primarily because it was a bit my fault. I was finishing a film before I went into this film. So we only had about 4 days of rehearsal, which was mainly just us getting together in a weird small room and getting to know each other. We really got to know each other and rehearsed on set. We had, you know, much to the chagrin of the producers, including myself, because I was a producer on the film, we did have a lot of rehearsal on set. We would take up a lot of time during the day rehearsing. Sometimes we wouldn't start shooting till the afternoon because we'd spend most of the morning just figuring out what we were going to do. But I do think it was necessary. I think we needed to establish those relationships, and the film didn't work if the chemistry between the actors wasn't working. But we also had 4, you know, or 3, I should say, plus me, very professional, wonderful, easy, collaborative actors. Logan, Odessa are just far more mature than their ages, which are shockingly young, for how talented and incredible they are. And of course, Michael Stuhlbarg is, in my opinion, one of the greatest living actors. So it was a real group effort. There was a lot of wandering around the yard in the backyard, sort of, chatting and trying to figure out what we were going to do. But it was fun.
Amazing. That's wonderful. I have probably one of the last questions we'll have is Gary from Scotland. Would you describe yourself as a student of the method school? It seems to me that you are quite an intense actor. I wonder how much research you carry out in your portrayals generally.
I'm probably a student of the whatever is the opposite of method acting. I have to. There must be the opposite of it somewhere. But I'm terrible at research. I'm terrible at method acting or trying to stay in character when the camera's not rolling. It's just not my thing. I think primarily because I get bored. So if I stay in a character, I find that I get bored of that character. I need to kind of step out of it, and then I get excited about going back to it. It's just the way I work. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to act. I've never thought that. I think whatever is the most truthful way for you as an actor to portray the character and to tell the story is the way to do it. I don't think there's any sort of prescribed method that is right or wrong. But for me personally, I'm just much more instinctive and just can't keep it that serious for that long.
That's fantastic. I'm going to close with a question from myself, which is, if somebody is going to see this film, they have no knowledge of Shirley Jackson, they're curious, but they don't know anything about her. What are you hoping people will take away from this film in terms of how they see her?
Yeah. I honestly hope that they feel like they know her as a writer a bit more than they did. I hope they feel like they just read a Shirley Jackson story. That's one of the things that me and Josephine talked about, and the writer talked about, that it feels less like a biopic and more like one of Shirley's stories. And that, I think, I hope people walk away and go, well, that was an experience that is memorable. And I want to read more of her work. There's a lot of different kind of work out there by her. And so I hope it opens the door to more experiences like that for people.
Wonderful. Well, I hope, as we've said, I hope this is the end of your relationship with Shirley Jackson. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And speaking of Josephine Decker, the next Cousin Home Cinema event will be with Josephine Decker on Tuesday the 19th. So please do come back and speak with us then. And please watch Shirley. It's streaming now on Cousin Home Cinema. If you enjoy it, please encourage other people to see it as well. Thank you so much. And Elisabeth, again, thank you so much for coming this evening and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me. I'm a big fan of yours and Curzon, and I think that the work that you guys are doing is wonderful. Keeping film alive during this time and allowing people to see new work is really important. So thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your questions, and good night. Oh, that was.
Oh, where did we go?